your video, that would be great. You just get the books. So we're in the book of Deuteronomy, yeah. Which is a book filled with lots of what to do and what not to do, and if you do this, it's good, and if you do that, it's bad, and the consequences, and that's what we're reading this week. So I think what we'll do, you have yours, right? It's Deuteronomy 11. I'll tell you in a minute. It's a short parsha. 7:12. Sorry. Eikev. See what it says. Eikev. I have a bunch of notes in there. So that's where we are. So let's start with the blessing. We'll go into Torah study. Shabbat shalom, everyone. It's good to be with you. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, u'v'Adonai Yerushalayim. Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, u'v'Adonai Yerushalayim. Baruch Shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Baruch Shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Baruch hu et Adonai hamaboram. Baruch Adonai barak le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher barach banu im kol ha'amim. Ve'natan lanu et torato. Ruach yasher lina notenet haTorah. Amen. Let's go right into the reading, and we'll do what we do. We jump in with questions and comments and thoughts and reflections. So I will just say that there's parts in this parsha that are going to be challenging given what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank right now. So just a heads up, because there's language in this parsha that's used to justify, as if to say, this is the commandment we're supposed to follow. So I'll have things to say about that. But I just want to, like, you'll see it, you'll hear it in a moment. So somebody want to unmute and read? If somebody's trying to read, you're muted.
Is it big enough to see, or do people need it bigger?
It's great for us here.
It's big enough. It's big enough.
Great, thank you. Somebody want to read?
Sure.
Thank you.
And if you do obey these rules and observe them carefully, your God, Yah, will maintain faithfully for you the covenant made on oath with your fathers. It's a little bit mixed up right now.
We're seeing two of it for some reason. It's doing something really weird. It's doubled itself. There we go.
Okay. God will favor you and bless you and multiply you, blessing your issue from the womb and your produce from the soil, your new grain and wine and oil, the calving of your herd and the lambing of your flock, and the land sworn to your fathers to be assigned to you. You shall be blessed above all other peoples. There should be no sterile male or female among you or among your livestock. The breath of life will ward off from you all sickness. God will not bring upon you any of the dreadful diseases of Egypt about which you know, but will inflict them upon all your enemies. You shall destroy all the peoples that your God, YHVH, delivers to you, showing them no pity. And you shall not worship their gods, for that would be a snare to you. Should you say to yourselves, these nations are more numerous than we, how can we dispossess them? You need have no fear of them. You have but to bear in mind that your God, YHVH, did to Pharaoh and all the Egyptians. The wondrous acts that you saw with your own eyes, the signs and the portents, the mighty hand and the outstretched arm by which your God, YHVH, liberated you. Thus will your God, YHVH, do to all the peoples you now fear. Your God, YHVH, will also send a plague against them until those who are left in hiding shall perish before you. Do not stand in dread of them, for your God, YHVH, is in your midst, a great and awesome God. Your God, YHVH, will dislodge those people before you little by little. You will not be able to you will not be able to put an end to them at once, else the wild beast would multiply to your hurt. Your God, YHVH, will deliver them up to you, throwing them into utter panic until they are wiped out. God will deliver their kings into your hand, and you shall obliterate their name from under the heavens. No one shall stand up to you until you have wiped them out. You shall consign the images of their gods to the fire. You shall not covet the silver and gold on them and keep it for yourselves, lest you be ensnared thereby, for that is abhorrent to your God, YHVH. You must not bring an abhorrent thing into your house, or you will be prescribed like it. You must reject it as abominable and abhorrent, for it is prescribed. You shall faithfully observe all the instruction that I enjoin you upon you today, that you may thrive and increase and be able to possess the land that YHVH promised on oath to your fathers. Remember the long way that your God, YHVH, has made you travel in the wilderness these past 40 years in order to test you by hardships, to learn what was in your hearts, whether you would keep the divine commandments or not. God subjected you to the hardship of hunger and then gave you manna to eat, but neither you nor your ancestors have ever known in order which neither you nor your ancestors have ever known, in order to teach you that a human being does not live on bread alone, but that one day may live on anything that YHVH decrees. The clothes upon you did not wear out, nor did your feet swell these 40 years. Bear in mind that your God, YHVH, disciplines you just as a householder disciplines his son. Therefore, keep the commandments of your God, YHVH, walk in God's ways and show reverence. For your God, YHVH, is bringing you into a good land, a land with streams and springs and fountains issuing from plain and hill, a land of wheat and barley, of vines, figs, and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey, a land where you may eat food without stint, where you will lack nothing, a land whose rocks are iron and from whose hills you can mine copper. When you have eaten your fill, give thanks to your God, YHVH, for the good land given to you. Take care lest you forget your God, YHVH, and fail to keep the divine commandments, rules, and laws upon which I enjoin upon you today. when you have eaten your fill and have built fine houses to live in your herds and flocks have multiplied, and your silver and gold have increased, and everything you own has prospered. Beware lest your heart grow haughty and you forget your God, YHVH, who freed you from the land of Egypt, the house of bondage, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness with its seraph, serpents and scorpions, a parched land with no water in it, who brought forth water for you from the flinty rock, who fed you in the wilderness with manna, which your ancestors had never known, in order to test you by hardships, only to benefit you in the end. And you say to yourselves, my own power and the might of my own hand have won this wealth for me. Remember that it is your God, YHVH, the breath of life, who gives you the power to get wealth in fulfillment of the covenant made on oath with your fathers, as is still the case. If you do not forget your God, YHVH, and follow other gods to serve them or bow down to them, I warn you this day that you shall certainly perish. Like the nations that YHVH will cause to perish before you, so shall you perish, because you did not heed your God, YHVH. Hear, O Israel, you are about to cross the Jordan to go
Oh,
in.
let's pause, let's stop and get to 7. Let's do some commentary on 7 and 8. Thank you so much. Woo. That's a mouthful. That's a lot, huh? So before I say anything, because I could say a lot, I'm gonna open it up for folks to reflect. What are your reactions and thoughts? I know you already had a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's what the fascists are saying now.
Right. Yeah, David has a comment here.
Well, excuse me. It's the contradictions that bother me. In Exodus, God said they were the God of all people. And yet here, as with the Egyptians, he's going to strike down certain people. And I don't know if I don't think we've come to that part yet, but one of the things that it's references is the stranger. And are not these tribes or these peoples that are going to be killed by or wiped out? Are they not strangers who should be welcomed? So those are some contradictory. They're contradictory in my mind. They may not be. And then, of course, I'm reminded of the mitzvah. Thou shalt not kill. But this is full of killing. And I don't understand the contradictions.
Great. I'm gonna let it sit and I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Yeah. Others? Did everyone hear that?
Yeah, I have a question. It's Sally from the Zoom. I have a question. It's about not bowing to other gods. There's a prescription in the part that we just read about not bowing to idols or anything. And I know you said at the beginning you'd just been on like a joint Jewish and Buddhist retreat. Well, last week I was at a meditation and hiking holiday, and I was very uncomfortable that the meditation wasn't just sitting and breathing and so on. There was actually a Buddhist shrine in the room with like a Buddha, and people were getting up and lighting candles and bowing to the statue. I mean, it made me really uncomfortable because I was sort of had an Orthodox upbringing, and the very thought of bowing to an idol was like, oh, I'm definitely not going to do that. So I just stayed in my place and I tried not to look at the shrine, but I felt very uncomfortable. So I just wondered if you had any views on that. Like, is it actually bowing to an idol or is it something different?
Well, I think there's a couple responses I could say that. One of which is we have our practices and teachings, and other traditions have theirs. So it may not be for me to bow down to idols, but it's not for me to say whether other people are. And I think the question really is, what is an idol? Right? Is an idol literally just a statue? Because I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Buddhist practitioner and who's also Jewish, and they said that in their mind, the Buddha reminds them of who they want to be. It like pulls them back. So it's kind of like, you could think of it like seat, right? It's like, oh, right, I want to embody right speech and right thought and kindness, and so they, so perhaps they bow down as a homage to like the values rather than the person, or rather than the statue itself. So I think, and I don't want to prescribe what other people and what other practices and traditions should be doing for themselves. I don't do it either. I don't bow down. But that's also part of my nature. Like, I don't bow down to anyone. So, but I don't want to prescribe what other people should or should not do in their practices. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. So you wouldn't actually consider that as avodah zarah? Like well, that it's prescribed for a Jewish person to sit in that space, because I was perfectly comfortable sitting in the space.
I don't think it's a problem to sit in the space.
No, that's, yeah.
And I also think, like, the question is within you. What are you doing? Are you bowing down to something? An idol is something that strays you from placing in your highest value, let's say, your highest moral value, the teachings, the divine teachings of love and care and kindness and generosity. So anything that like takes you away from that can be an idol, right? Land can be an idol, religion can be an idol, nationalism can be an idol, money can be an idol, statue can be an idol. But if it's not taking you away from the divine teachings that we're hearing, not the ones to slaughter and kill, we'll get to that, then maybe it's not an idol.
Rebecca?
Thank you.
It was a comment on that.
I also have a comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to put you in the queue just because
Okay.
other people might have comments on that too. Are there other comments in response to the idol that in your hands, that in Brent or Rachel or Andre, or some new comments? New comments? Okay, so I'm going to let these guys respond and then we'll get to you, okay? Because they're following that thread. All right.
I just want to say that in true Buddhist practice, the Buddha is not a deity. And so when you're bowing to the Buddha, you are not bowing to another god. It's more, as Rabbi Kat said, it's more about wanting to emulate the enlightenment of the Buddha. And when you transcend, you're transcending in terms of your enlightenment and your understanding. I mean, Buddhism teaches that life is suffering, and you're trying to transcend the suffering by following the Buddha.
Thank you.
I heard something along those lines. I had a Buddhist teacher. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no.
I had a Buddhist teacher in college, and the Buddhist and the Jewish groups intermingled often because we shared the same spiritual space. So often lots of the lots of the Jewish students went to the Buddhist meditation, and a lot of us were uncomfortable with the bowing when it came up, and the Buddhist teacher said, first of all, you don't have to bow, right? It's up to you. And second of all, when you're bowing, she described it as what you're really doing is bowing to yourself, and as you said, bowing to your growth.
Beautiful, thank you. And I would just say, like, the idea that all life is suffering is not a Jewish value at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. So that's very interesting. Okay, Brent.
Yes, back to the larger discussion. I just wanted to mention when it said in the Ten Commandments and other places, do not kill. From my understanding, the better translation is do not murder. So that there is in Judaism cases where you are as necessary permitted to kill someone. So the generalization is do not murder, and there's a big distinction, as in many laws, between killing and murdering. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. I can't read that. Yeah, that's Rachel.
Hi.
Hi.
I read Devar Torah from Jewish Currents that speaks very eloquently, I think, to this question. Can I read part of it?
I was gonna pull it in a bit.
Oh, okay. But it basically says that the conquest of the land totally depends on God's blessing on it, and people have never been good enough to get that completely, so that even Joshua's conquest was only partial. But I found it very helpful.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull out more of it. Thank you for bringing it in. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Rachel. Andre.
Well, while Mark was reading, I kind of, my mind went to sort of a meta survey of my feelings rather than my thoughts about what was being read. And it just brought to mind all my schizophrenic reaction to teachings like this, where you have horrible things supposedly coming from God, and then you have later on beautiful things, and then you have horrible things, and then you have beautiful things, and then you sort of look out and see who's practicing what today, and you see horrible things and beautiful things. So it's sort of like a continual, from pillar to post, emotional reaction. Now, I can have a rational or an intellectual reaction given the interpretations, some of which we've had just a few minutes ago from other people and from you, Rabbi. But emotionally, it's sort of a roller coaster, and I'm just not sure what to do with it. That's all.
Yes, we have discussed this roller coaster a lot, right, Andre? This tension between domination and love, and the God of domination and God of love. That is, both those voices are in the Torah, because both of those voices are in us and in the people who wrote the Torah at the time. And you can hear them almost arguing with each other, like, go conquer the land. No, you're only going to get the land if God actually gives it to you, and if you follow the covenant. So I'm going to say more about that in a minute. I see Neil's hand up, so go for it, Neil.
Well, I agree with the general view of the congregation that these are not the Jewish values that draw us in or seem congruent with an ethical approach. But there's a couple of levels. One, there's a Zen expression, don't confuse the finger for the moon, which pragmatically what that means is they extrapolated the wonders and the liberation that when God intervened in history and freed us from Egypt, to extrapolate that God is a God of war, and this applies to how we should move forward, rather than that being partial arc of God did a radical deconstruction of the idolatries of the day, power, domination, arrogance, and callousness, and brought us to Sinai to get revelation of a not just personal, but a social set of ethics of how to live in harmony with life. Secondly, what we know about the book of Deuteronomy was there was a mythos level that there were only 4 books of the Torah originally, and this 5th book happened to be found when they were cleaning up the temple. And a lot of people historically argue that following the return from Babylon, this became a writing that's purpose was to embolden a devastated and disheartened people. But again, it took the issue of God as a God of war rather than building a just society. I can't think of the name of the Orthodox rabbi who made a distinction between a historical returning to the land of Israel and a messianic return to the land of Israel. The historical basically would be like all nations of aggression, conquest, power over, and demeaning of others. And the messianic would be all human beings are created in the image of God, and therefore the society, from protection of the weak to economic redistribution, should reflect those ethos.
Thank you, Neil. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to pull a little bit on the Jewish currents, parsha, and then some of my reflections also, and then we'll continue reading because there's still more. So it starts with, I want to remind you that the story is, this is Moses retelling what's happened and what God's teachings are to the people. And the people he's telling this to are the generation that has survived in the desert. Because if you remember, the folks who left Egypt had to wander in the desert for 40 years and then die off because they weren't free from the psycho-spiritual trappings of enslavement. So they were physically liberated, but they weren't psycho-spiritually liberated. So they all died in the desert. So this is a younger generation that he's talking to. So the story gets slightly told differently because he's speaking to a younger generation. So it's kind of saying to them, don't forget this. This is what it was. So that's just something to hold as we hold this story. So it starts with, right, you shall conquer the land. The word used there is achalta, which really is like eat. That's the word for eating. So you shall devour like all the people God delivers to you. You shall show no pity. You shall not worship their gods, because that will lure you away from the divine. And obviously this parsha is, as we talked about earlier, is used by settlers and right-wing religious people to justify the conquering of the land and Jewish exclusivity, right? Jewish supremacy and exclusivity to the land, and sanctioning the violent dispersion, right? The violent dispossession and killing of the Palestinians. And there's in the Jewish currents parsha, they link to an article, it's not that long, by Jabotinsky, who's one of the Zionist founders. And Leah will put a link to that in the chat. It's a really, I recommend reading it, not right now, but later. It's like 3 or 4 pages, and it just, anytime someone wants to argue that it's not settled colonialism, that's not how they thought of it, or they didn't really want to wipe all the people off the land, or there's no racism in Judaism, just read those few pages because it'll, it's a good counter to those arguments. So they use this to say the central commandment of the Torah is to take the land. But first of all, it's clear also later in Deuteronomy, it says to the people, God owns the land. You do not own the land. You are mere sojourners on this land. And even in this parsha, it says, you think that you gained all this by your own hands, you're going to become so haughty, you're going to forget that it was me. And so it's a reminder that we are to be humble and not to assume that we gained it all by ourselves, but that it's through the hand of God. And in response to like, this is the commandment to take the land. And we've talked about this before, repeated 36 times in the Torah, more than any other commandment, is the commandment, as you pointed out, David, to love the stranger, to love the other. So it's kind of turning this on its head. And there's no evidence, of course, that any of this conquering even happened. So, and then in the Jewish Currents parsha, they refer to Shifrei, which is commentary. So there's tons of commentaries, midrashic and halakhic commentaries on our Torah, like libraries full. And one of the things that commentary emphasizes is that in this parsha, it's later on, it's in chapter 11. We haven't gotten there yet. It is not that the people are going to drive out the inhabitants of the land. It's that God is going to do it, not flesh and blood. It's that God will dispossess the people and disperse them, which can point to why there's Orthodox Jews who are opposed to the occupation or opposed to what's happening in Gaza, who are opposed to a nation state of Israel, because they say, no, that doesn't happen until the Messiah comes, until God makes it happen. And why is God going to dispossess people of the land? It warns us here, if we do not follow the commandments, we too will be dispossessed of the land. So God is, I don't like this theology, don't get me wrong here, but the theology here is that God rewards you if you are in covenant with God. If you break the covenant of God, meaning to love the other, to care for the stranger, and murder and destroy land and all of that, then you do not have a right to possess the land. You will not get to access into the land, or you will not be able to stay in the land. So you can think of this as like, we do humans and God does God. And when we think that we can do God, because the Torah says, oh, take the land and dispossess people, God will show us who God is. And, we're watching unfold right now a horrific, escalating genocide of Palestinians and escalating ethnic cleansing in the West Bank. And what we don't know is what the consequences of that will be in the long run for Jews. I don't care about that so much right now. That's not what matters. But if we're talking theologically and as Jews, we're thinking about this, that, we have strayed so far from God that I can't imagine that we will stay in this land. That is the beginning of the end is here. Interestingly, Maimonides, who wrote a very comprehensive list of all the commandments, did not include conquest and settlement of the land as one of the commandments, which is very interesting. And what he does with this is in Hebrew, there's grammatic ambiguity. Because when you talk about the future tense, it's imperfect. So it can be you will, you should, you may, it might happen. And also could even be a warning, watch out, you might do this. So it's a very interesting way of, and we've talked about this in other places when it says you shall die. What it often means is the consequences will be that you will die. Like the natural consequences of harming someone is that a part of you will die, that something dies off. It's not that actually people are going to murder you. And that's kind of how he's reading this here, that it's not that you will do it or that you should do it, but that perhaps it may happen. It could happen. This could be what happens. And we didn't read in the prayer this morning, but we've read it many times before, the V'haya'im Shemoah, which is the blessing, the prayer that goes, if you build a loving and just world, you will have abundance, the world will work, the economic, social systems, if they're just, means the ecological systems will be just, and there will be abundance for you. But if you build an unjust world, everything gets messed up ecologically as well, and you'll get wiped off the land. And so this parsha is a similar warning. It does say that. And then there's this interesting part, if you remember reading it, where it said, God will dislodge them little by little. Like it doesn't happen all at once. And it's to avoid the beasts. And Nachmanides says that this is a promise of safety and a warning that if you sin, you're going to lose that protection. And then I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, maybe it's little by little, not to avoid the beasts on the land, but our internal beast, like the hungry ghost, the hungry beast within, right? Like if we start conquering and like get caught up in conquering and violence, you're seeing it. We're like seeing it unfold in Israel, like what they're doing. It's like snowballing, the level of violence and horrific things that are happening all over the place. It's like their own beasts have taken over them. And so if we're going to, obviously I don't think we should ever take the land, but if we're going to do things that are ethically questionable, you better do it really slowly, because otherwise your own beast will take over and it'll snowball. And you need to be checking in every step of the way. Like maybe I've gone too far here, right? And so it's a warning, I think, also about our own beasts and the way that they can we in Exodus, Pharaoh's heart is hardened by himself. And then it says God hardens Pharaoh's heart. And the way we understand that is that once you harden your own heart, it's really hard to unharden it. It's like there's an energetic thing that happens. It's not literally that God does it. It's just that like psycho-spiritually it happens that it's really hard to dislodge that hardening of our heart. And I suspect most of us have had that experience either toward us or even toward others, where we really like harden our heart to someone and then it's hard, even if we want, it's kind of hard to dislodge that in our heart. So those are some reflections on those two parts. Is that, I can't read the name of it. It does say Lisa and then Neil, if you had more to say. I'm not sure if your hand is up again or.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just following on what you were saying. I'm wondering if we could think of Zionism as a kind of modern idol. Also, that people very understandably understanding where it was rooted, that people have latched on to as, an idol.
Yeah. Yes.
Without realizing it.
Right. Ideologies can become idols.
Yeah.
And very harmful. Yeah. So that's why it's like, don't idolize anything other than the divine. And even don't even idolize the divine, but always turn toward the divine when you're uncertain. Turn toward the divine. Turn away from the ideologies that lead to separation, that lead to domination and power over, that tell us that I am different from you, that other people. Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Neil.
Yes, the Torah, in the theological lens you're describing, it gives us warnings of how, if our consciousness goes in a certain direction, what is going to occur. Well, if we ground this in social, political reality of these warnings, we can do a very brief critique of predatory capitalism, which you use the term the hungry ghost, which basically means no matter how much you have, there's a sense of emptiness and a craving for more. The petroleum companies are the poster child for the kind of warning in the Torah that had been discussed previously in this discussion.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Claire, Shabbat Shalom.
There we go. There we are. Yes, thank you so much. It's good to be with you. Thank you so much for the consistent invitations. I was thinking along the same lines as you, Rebcat, in terms of it being an inner process. And what came to my mind, I used to be in monastic life years ago and started a little interfaith prayer group. And I had two women from the renewal movement that were rabbis who taught me that when Abraham was called by God, the Leg Lekah wording, that it means, well, we interpret it as go forward to the land I will show you, but the deeper meaning could be go forward towards yourself.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that land is also used in that context, and that we're seeing this as an issue of land. So I was thinking of something very similar, that it is an inner process that's being conveyed, but the idea that that we're usually very left-brained when to start processing things, and we really have to move into the right brain in terms of the insight and intuition and a bigger, more metaphorical picture. I think maybe that's what's getting in the way of what's being conveyed by the divine, that it's being interpreted left-brained rather than a metaphoric, this is an inner process. Bless you. So yeah, thank you again.
Thank you. Yes. So Lech Lecha, we think of it as go forth to the land I'm going to show you, but right, the Kabbalists also read it as go within.
Yes.
See, within your inner landscape.
Right.
And so you could, it's beautiful, right? You could read this the same way. Like that's why, like the hungry beast that you're navigating are those within. The landscape that you're trying to figure out how to navigate is within. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Roger.
Yeah.
Morning.
Yeah. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I sort of take this in my simple-minded, literal way. I take it as history, and it doesn't matter whether it's accurate history or anything like that. But it's very familiar to me. I mean, you've got a political leader who is also a military leader. He's led these people for decades now, and he speaks as he's learned to speak. He's speaking to illiterate people, very uneducated people, although he himself had an education in Egypt. And so he's doing the usual things that you'd expect. He appeals to a higher power as giving him the authority to give these instructions. So when he tells you go into this country and kill everyone and take the land, he's saying God is telling you to do that. And while he does that, he has to motivate you. So he has to tell you you're either with us or against us, which he does on several occasions. And if you're against us, we'll treat you just like the people we're going to kill. He also has to sweeten the pot to make people motivated enough, not only to have the sort of the courage to risk death in this settler colonial enterprise, but also to overcome the natural instinct against killing, which we know we all have. So he he does sort of a real estate puffery. You know, it's the land of milk and honey. You know, everything's going to grow all the time because God's going to look out for you. So to give them that double motivation. And I understand that, you know, we're uncomfortable because we like to take this as a book of wisdom, a book of guidance, a book of ethics and philosophy. But for me, God is history. And in that sense, I don't want my history prettified. I want to see it in all its gore. And, you know, well, just this is a digression. There's an interesting detail. He says, when you go in one instance, don't even take their gold and silver. And I mean, that has a couple significances. It adds to the demonizations it's necessary to get people to do that sort of fighting and conquering. But it also is designed, I think, to keep the troops lean and mean. I'd analogize it to the way the US forced Europe to stop using Russian hydrocarbons and even blew up the pipeline to make sure they wouldn't do it. But maybe that's a stretch. And the other thing I wanted to note, as far as Jewish values go, you know, Jewish humor likes self-deprecation, and it also likes insult humor. And those don't really try to prettify history. They don't even try to prettify our own history, just the opposite. Well, I could say a little more. Just that when Moses gives the lecture about, you know, I've kept you in here for 40 years to see if you're good enough. What he's really referring to is it's been a kind of boot camp for this, you know, final assault. And the final thing I wanted to say is that this is to some extent an improvisation. Like it's pretty clear that Moses didn't necessarily even intend the Exodus. I mean, when he started working, he was organizing people for better working conditions. They were begging Pharaoh for 3-day holidays, religious holidays. They were protesting the speed up when they had to provide the straw for their own bricks. And it just, you know, things developed the way they did. And so we ended up with the Exodus. And so by the same token, he didn't necessarily plan that they would have to, you know, conquer these other people and destroy them and take their land. So like any political leader, revolutionary leader, perhaps, you know, he's improvising, and this is what happens. And it may not be pretty, but this is history. And I think I talked long enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you. I also don't want to critify, as you said, these horrible passages. Perhaps not for the same reason, perhaps for the same reason. I want to grapple with them because, as you said, they are part of the history, whatever that means. They're part of our story, and we have we have that story living in the real time right now. That's literally today. This is happening in horrifically violent ways. And if we prettify the past, then we can gloss over the present. That's why I get really angry when people want to deny that this is a genocide or deny what's happening in Palestine, because if you deny what's happening in Palestine today, it becomes exceedingly easy to deny the Holocaust, or to deny the genocide of the Namibian people, or to deny, you know, Rwanda or Yugoslavia. I mean, it just becomes really, or the genocide of Native Americans. And so we have to be honest, and I've said this before, right? Like, we have to look at the truth first and be honest before we can get to justice and then peace. Because justice doesn't happen unless you know the truth of what really happened. Because then you can start to do the reparations and repair and transformation that can lead to justice. And then you can lead to peace. So yeah, I have no interest in criticizing or not reading this. And I do think reading it as an inner exploration doesn't prettify it. It just says, here's another way to look at it. And we don't know Like maybe that really was how they meant it when they wrote it. We don't actually know. So it could have also been, or some people could have meant it as a psycho-spiritual exploration as opposed to a literal physical manifestation. So yeah. All right, no more comments for now. Yes, Mark, I see that.
And kind of building on what you were saying, I'm thinking that we have this story, which to me is myth. There's not a lot of basis in fact that I know of that the whole Moses and all that actually happened. And some people, and to literalize it and to see that as the actual history in the commandment to cause destruction. It's like we're taking a story and we're looking at the story and not what we're actually doing out there in the world. And that's idolatry. And we're living our lives by that instead of beholding what's in front of us.
Right, dealing with the actual live reality of what's happening right now. Right. Okay, let's keep reading because now we get to the Shema. Did we get your question answered, kind of? Okay.
What's the page again?
Chapter 9 of Deuteronomy, 9:1. I can find it for you if you want. So Shema, right? Shema Yisrael. This is not the Shema, but Shema Yisrael is here. Shema, I'm just going to say before we read this out loud, Shema is listen, hear. If you were here for the prayers and we did the Shema for Palestinian liberation, and Kohenet Ilana G. Margolis says, listen with the ears of your heart. That is really, Shema is like, really take it in. Really hear and listen.
I lost it.
Yeah, in a second. No problem. And let it sink in. So let's start reading and then we'll go from there.
Continue or?
Yeah. If you're willing.
Yep. Hear, O Israel, you are about to cross the Jordan to go in and dispossess nations greater and more populous than you. Great cities with walls sky high, a people great and tall, the Anakites, of whom you have knowledge. For you have heard it said, who can stand up to the children of Anak? Know then this day that none other than your God, YHVH, is crossing at your head, a devouring fire. It is God who will wipe them out, subduing them before you, that you may quickly dispossess and destroy them as the breath of life promised you. And when your God, YHVH, has thrust them from your path, say not to yourselves, YHVH has enabled us to possess this land because of our virtues. It is rather because of the wickedness of those nations that YHVH is dispossessing them before you.
So that's a really important line. That's what I was talking about before, right? Putting aside that we agree or don't agree. But what's being said here is they are being, first of all, God's going to dispossess them. God's going to cause the harm and the damage. And they're being dispossessed, not because you're better, not because of Jewish supremacy, but because they acted evil. They were wicked. And you too can be and will be wicked. Go ahead, Mark.
It is not because of your virtues and your rectitude that you will be able to possess their country, but it is because of their wickedness that your God, YHVH, is dispossessing those nations before you. And in order to fulfill the oath that YHVH made to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Know then that it is not for any virtue of yours that your God YHVH is giving you this good land to possess, for you are a stiff-necked people. Remember, never forget how you provoked your God YHVH to anger in the wilderness. From the day that you left the land of Egypt until you reached this place, you have continued defiant toward YHVH. At Horeb, you so provoked YHVH that YHVH was angry enough with you to have destroyed you. I had ascended the mountain to receive the tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant that YHVH had made with you, and I stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, eating no bread and drinking no water. In the breath of life gave me the 2 tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God with the exact words that YHVH had addressed to you on the mountain of the fire on the day of the assembly. At the end of those 40 days and 40 nights, YHVH gave me the 2 tablets of stone, the tablets of the covenant. And YHVH said to me, hurry, go down from here at once, for the people whom you brought out of Egypt have acted wickedly. They have been quick to stray from the path that I joined upon them. They have made themselves a molten image. The breath of life further said to me, I see that this is a stiff-necked people. Let me alone, and I will destroy them and blot out their name from under heaven, and I will make you a nation far more numerous than they. I started down the mountain, a mountain ablaze with fire, the 2 tablets of the covenant in my 2 hands. I saw how you had sinned against your God, YHVH. You had made yourselves a molten calf. You had been quick to stray from the path that YHVH had enjoined upon you. Thereupon, I gripped the 2 tablets and flung them away with both my hands, smashing them before your eyes. I threw myself down before the breath of life, eating no bread and drinking no water 40 days and 40 nights, as before. Because of the great wrong you had committed, doing what displeased and vexed the breath of life. For I was in dread of the fierce anger against you, which moved YHVH to wipe you out. In that time, too, YHVH gave heed to me. Moreover, the breath of life was angry enough with Aaron to have destroyed him. So I also interceded for Aaron at that time. As for that sinful thing you had made, the calf, I took it and put it to the fire. I broke it to bits and ground it thoroughly until it was fine as dust, and I threw its dust into the brook that comes down from the mountain. Again, you provoked YHVH at Tabara, at Massah, and at Kibroth HaTa'ava. And when YHVH sent you on from Kadesh Barnea, saying, go up and take possession of the land that I am giving you, you flouted the command of your God YHVH, whom you did not put your trust in nor obey. As long as I have shown you, you have been defiant towards the breath of life. May I lay prostrate before the breath of life those 40 days, and when I lay prostrate before the breath of life those 40 days and 40 nights, because YHVH was determined to destroy you, I prayed to the breath of life and said, oh Lord, breath of life, do not annihilate your very own people, whom you redeemed in your majesty and whom you freed from Egypt with a mighty hand. Give thought to your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and pay no heed to the stubbornness of this people, its wickedness and its sinfulness.
Actually, what Moses said to God wasn't have pity on them. What Moses said to God in that story was, you're going to destroy them, and the Egyptians are going to think, who is this God? Wasn't such a great God after all. So he was actually appealing to God's ego there, not to the goodness of the people. You can keep going, Mark.
Okay. Else the country from which you freed us will say, it was because of the breath of it was because the breath of life was powerless to bring them into the land promised to them, and because of having rejected them, that their God brought them out to have them die in the wilderness. Yet they are your very own people, whom you freed with your great might in your outstretched arm.
Can you keep going?
Sure. Thereupon YHVH said to me, carve out 2 tablets of stone like the first, and come up to me on the mountain, and make an ark of wood. I will inscribe on the tablets the commandments that were on the first tablets that you smashed, and you shall deposit them in the ark. I made an ark of acacia wood and carved out 2 tablets of stone like the first. I took the 2 tablets with me and went up the mountain. After inscribing on the tablets the same text as on the first, the 10 commandments that the breath of life addressed to you on the mountain out of the fire on the day of the assembly, YHVH gave them to me. Then I left and went down from the mountain, and I deposited the tablets in the ark that I had made, where they still are, as YHVH had commanded me. From Beeroth B'nai Jaakan, the Israelites marched to Mosera. Aaron died there and was buried there, and his son Eleazar became priest in his stead. From there they marched to Gudgod, from Gudgod to Jotbah, a region of running brooks. At the time, YHVH set apart the tribe of Levi to carry the ark of YHVH's covenant, to stand in attendance upon YHVH, and to bless in God's name, as is still the case. That is why Levi has received no hereditary portion along with its kin. YHVH is its portion, as your God, YHVH, spoke concerning it. I had stayed on the mountain as I did the first time, 40 days and 40 nights, and YHVH heeded me once again. YHVH agreed not to destroy you, and YHVH said to me, up, resume the march at the head of the people, that they may go in and possess the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. And now, O Israel, what does your God YHVH command to you? Only this, to revere your God, the breath of life, to walk only in divine paths, to love and to serve your God, the breath of life, with all your heart and soul, keeping the breath of life's commandments and laws, which I enjoin upon you today for your good. Mark the heavens to their uttermost reaches. Mark, the heavens to their uttermost reaches belong to your God, YHVH, the earth and all that is on it. Yet it was, did
Go
you
ahead,
say?
I can wait.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yet it was to your ancestors that YHVH was drawn out of love for them, so that you, their lineal descendants, were chosen from among all peoples, as is now the case. Cut away, therefore, the thickening about your hearts and stiffen your necks no more. For your God, YHVH, is God supreme and Lord supreme, the great, the mighty, and the awesome God, who shows no favor and takes no bribe, but upholds the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and befriends the stranger, providing food and clothing. You too must befriend the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You must revere YHVH. Only your God shall you worship. To God shall you hold fast, and by God's name shall you swear. The breath of life is your glory and your God, who wrought for you those marvelous, awesome deeds that you saw with your own eyes. Your ancestors went down to Egypt 70 persons. And now your God, YHVH, has made you as numerous as the stars of heaven. Love, therefore, your God, the breath of life, and always keep God's charge, God's laws, God's rules, and God's commandments. Take thought this day that it was not your children who neither experienced nor witnessed the lesson of your God, YHVH, God's majesty, mighty hand, and outstretched arm. The signs and the deeds that God performed in Egypt against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all his land. What God did to Egypt's army, his horses and chariots, how the breath of life rolled back upon them the waters of the sea of reeds when they were pursuing you, thus destroying them once and for all. What God did for you in the wilderness before you arrived in this place. And what God did to Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, son of Reuben, when the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them, along with their households, their tents, and every living thing in their train, from amidst all Israel. But that it was you who saw with your own eyes all the marvelous deeds that YHVH performed. Keep therefore all the instructions that I enjoin upon you today, so that you may have strength to enter and take possession of the land that you are about to cross into and possess, and that you may long endure upon the soul that YHVH swore to your fathers to assign to them and to their heirs, a land flowing with milk and honey. For the land that you are about to enter and possess is not like the land of Egypt from which you have come. There the grain you sowed had to be watered by your own labors, like a vegetable garden. But the land you are about to cross into and possess, a land of hills and valleys, soaks up its water from the rains of heaven. It is a land upon which your God, the breath of life, looks after, and on which your God, the breath of life, always keeps an eye from year's beginning to year's end.
I'm gonna pause you here, Mark.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna read so can you show that for one more second, Leah? Sorry. Then we'll go back, but it says, Bihaya'im Shemoa Tishmeu. So if you obey the commandments I join upon you this day, now we can just see everybody. Thanks. This is the Vihayam Shemo that we usually read in the morning's prayers that we did not read this morning, that I'm just going to read now, because this is what it says in a translation that is a little bit more explicitly detailed, but this is what it's saying. It will come to pass if you love the transformative power of the universe with all your heart, all your soul, and all your passion, and using that energy, build a world based on these mitzvot, a world of love of the stranger, the other. So just earlier in chapter 10, God said, love the stranger, take care of the widow, right? Love the stranger, kindness, generosity, and care. It's all there. Peace, compassion, nonviolence, social, economic, and environmental justice, and ecological sensitivity. Then the world will work. This is what I just cut you off from reading, but this is what it says. The sun will shine, the rain will fall appropriate to its season, the earth will give forth her produce, and you and your animals will eat and be satisfied. And then it continues, but be careful, watch out. If you don't build a world based on these mitzvot, and instead build a world based on, now these are the details I'm outlining, but this is what it says. Unselfishness and greed, consuming and producing without care for the well-being of the planet or its inhabitants, constantly chasing and hoarding after more money, power, fame, or land. Building, now here's details, right? Building walls that separate. I'm bringing in the present moment, right? Voting rights for some and not others. Economic systems that benefit the few on the backs of the many. That is throughout the Torah, to create redistribution of wealth. The Torah is filled with that. Make sure that there are no needy in your land. But if you don't, then the world will not work. Just as the social, economic, and political systems become unbalanced, so too will the ecological and environmental systems and foundations of the earth and universe become unbalanced. It says this in the parsha: the sun will not shine, the rain will not fall appropriate to its season, the earth will not give forth her produce. There will be a series of environmental catastrophes. And in the Torah, they were called plagues. Cities and nations will be like, so this is details I add. Cities and nations alike will be consumed from bursting waters. Fires will spread throughout the lands and glaciers will melt. And then the Torah, it says right here in this parsha, and eventually you and your animals too will be wiped off the face of the earth in one of these catastrophic plagues. So what are we supposed to do? Teach it to our children. Talk about it in public. And then I add, even if your voice cracks and knees shake, because who wants to talk about this in public? Talk about in your home with your family and friends, even if they think you're being too serious, because you don't want to do that. You don't want to upset the apple cart. If there's not a moment, if this isn't a moment to upset the apple cart, I don't know what moment there is in history to upset the apple. If this isn't it, I don't know what it is. Talk about it when you walk by the way so strangers hear this message. In other words, protest. Get out on the street. Send letters. Why? Because this is the greatest spiritual need and calling in our time. Then it goes on to say, talk about it when you go to sleep at night and when you get up in the morning. Those are the prayers before bed and in the morning, because you don't want to remember this. It's not so easy. Bind it for a sign upon your arm and a sign upon your third eye, so that it seeps into your heart and guides your actions, and so it seeps into every cell and pore of your being. Write it for a sign upon your doorpost, the mezuzot, and upon your gate, so you remember and all those who come into your home know the values by which you live. And if you do these things and build a loving and just world, then you and your children and all children, I add that, will have a good long life on this good earth that God promised you. So that's the ending of this parsha, is this prayer. So it like, as you said, it like runs this huge gamut from go and destroy and do death and destruction. But what it's warning is, one, it's God that's going to do that. And two, if you too are wicked and don't follow these commandments, you too will be wiped off the face of the earth. Another thing, I see you, Roger, give me 1 sec here. It said, you didn't read it this way, but it said, let me think how it read it. Let me just find, they might say it differently here. What was it? It was 10:16. Give me 1 second. It says, cut away the barrier of your heart. The word that's being used there in Hebrew is circumcise. So in Jeremiah says the other people are better because they've circumcised their hearts. And so so then in Christianity, they say you don't have to do a circumcision. Just circumcise your heart, take it into your heart. And so there's a lot of people, this book of Deuteronomy is often attributed to Jeremiah. So it's, remove the hardness, remove the skin of your heart so that it can be more broken open, so it can be more tender. Circumcise your heart. Clearly, it's more important than what we do with our genitals. And then it warns again in chapter 11, safeguard, shamor, like guard, protect, hold on to these teachings, and remember that it's not you that did all this, it's the divine. And then it also said that God performed the miracles to give you faith in the possibility of transformation. That's why the miracles were performed, so that you would be able, as a people, to have trust in something greater than yourself. Roger's gonna go into, no, it's understood this way, which I love, Roger. I love it. It's not a criticism at all.
Yeah, some belief in something greater than yourself, the cause, the national project, the political project that they've been on for a couple of generations now. I mean, in this part of the Torah. Well, like two comments. One goes back to where Moses intercedes with God, or at least he's telling the people that he interceded with God. So it's kind of an interesting message. I mean, all leaders do something like that, but we're familiar with it from Christian intercession and all that stuff. But He's saying God is great and powerful, but who loves you, baby? It's me. And, you got to count on me as your leader, not just your interpreter of God's meanings, but I have some pull with God. And then the other thing is, the sort of insertions that at first they were sort of startling, oh, love the stranger as thyself, because you were strangers in Egypt and all that other stuff, and all the good stuff that we like. At first I thought it was contradictory, but then I realized it's not at all contradictory. In fact, just to take much more recent examples, when they constructed 500 years ago, European civilization, they had sort of a perimeter around a notion of rights and respect for the individual and respect for traditional rights, whether they were feudal rights becoming capitalist rights and so forth. And that was perfectly compatible with chattel slavery. And even the liberals of the time of the 17th and 18th century, they were mostly perfectly fine with slavery as long as it was in the Caribbean, and by the 19th century they were banning it in European countries proper. So it's not incompatible to say love the stranger and be just and good and take care of widows and don't have prejudices against bastards, which it says earlier. That's all perfectly consistent with a perfectly genocidal settler and colonialist attitude. Anyway, that's all.
Right, it's a liberal. We want people to be comfortable enough so they don't rise up and yet less than. We still want the hierarchy in society. So yeah. Anyone else have thoughts?
Behind you, Ken.
Oh, I'm sorry, David, thank you.
Again, it's a question. It's something I don't fully grasp. 10:12, and this is a different translation.
Yeah, that's I love that. Yeah.
Okay. And now, Israel, what does the Lord your God demand of you? Only this: to revere the Lord your God, to walk only in his paths, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and soul, keeping the Lord's commandments and laws, which I enjoin upon you today for your good. Okay. And then I compared, and this is not from the Torah, it's the prophet Micah.
Yep.
Who
Yep.
in 6:8 says, he has told you, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you, only to do justice and to love goodness and to walk modestly with your God. Walk humbly.
Yeah.
And
the prophets knew the Torah.
Well, that's good, yes. But he's saying more here, it seems to me. Micah is saying more than Moses was saying here.
Yeah. The prophets are the ones who are like, like I gave more details in my Shema than you're going to find in the Torah. The prophets are going to try to push the people to. The prophets are deeply problematic too. There's a lot of sexism and violence in the prophetic text too. So, footnote. And what I love about the prophets is that they are going to push the people. They're going to say, God says this, we're going to take it that far. Jesus was a prophet. Jesus did that. So yes, Micah's going to change the wording slightly, but it comes from here. Right? Just walk humbly, fear. So the word for revere was how your Tanakh translated it.
Yes.
My translates it, because it's an Orthodox one, is fear. It's the same verb. It's the same word. Fear and awe is the same word. Because if you think about like nature, storms, you both are like in awe of them and terrified of them, right? So that's the same verb in Hebrew, fear and awe. So, or revere, it's the same. Yeah.
What is the verb in Hebrew?
Ira. Yeah. So Micah does what the prophets do.
He pushes it farther.
He pushes it. And also elsewhere in the Torah, you can find similar language. Yeah, but I thought of that immediately as I read that. Yeah, good catch. That was a great catch. Yes, Mark. Thank you for all the reading, by the way. I meant to offer for someone else to read, and I kind of got caught up in hearing.
I enjoyed it. The image that came up when you took over the reading and you said you did an interpretation that was really powerful for me was that it's almost as if humanity arose from the systems of nature, if you will, or that's what nature being God for me, that's equivalent. And here we're creating systems that are destroying ourselves in nature itself. And so, of course, we're going to be spit out from the land. Of course, we're causing our own demise in a sense.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, it literally says that if you don't do this, the sun will not shine, the rain will not fall, the earth will not give forth its produce. You and your animals will be wiped off the face of the earth in one of these plagues. And that is what it says. I just add, I add like if you build walls that separate, because I'm trying to make it really applicable and tangible for people in this moment. But the essence is the same.
Yeah, and then the opposite of that is paying attention to how we, we create systems that are obliging to that original form, the unity of our being and nature and all that.
Right. I say in the morning blessings when I'm praying myself, I do a detailed blessings of gratitude for all the parts of my body. And one of them is the breath. So you breathe in and then you breathe out carbon dioxide, right? And I say this incredible cycle of giving and receiving. You take in the breath. There's a point at which you cannot take in anymore. And then you breathe it out and give it back. And it's an ecological model for how we could live our lives, how we could create our world. And this morning in the prayers I touched upon the prayer for you are loved by an unending love. Like there is abundant love. And then you have the other side of that, which is, and you shall love. And it's the same thing. If you visualize taking in as much love as you possibly can and filling yourself up, there's a point at which you can give it back out. You're full and it just happens. It's the way in which we could build our world. And I think that's what this V'hayim Shemoah part of the Shema is teaching us, that we can create an ecological system where you can take in enough, you can receive. I don't even like to say it's not even giving and taking. You're receiving, and then you're giving. It's not being taken from you. And if we created an ecological system where we were receiving and giving without clinging, the world would work. It's not that complicated. So yes, thank you. Mia.
Sorry. Yeah, I think we're onto something here, and what goes through me strongly is that the theological interpretation is not just in the abstract; it translates into how people perceive themselves, their role in society, and how they treat others. So, if we take this beautiful guidance from the prophets, despite their limitations at the historical moment, we're going to go in a very different direction than, as Roger had so articulately pointed out, as to a European model that even felt the need to create a King James version of the Bible to create the manufacture of consent so that the East Indian Company and all the other 101 versions of colonialism and all that came in its path somehow have a moral justification for it.
Yep. Yeah, thank you so much, Neil.
That was just, yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Sally, yes.
No, I
Thank
was just thinking towards the end of what was being read, that it said that you won't have to work the land like you did in Egypt. The land will be automatically irrigated. The rain will come straight from heaven. And I was thinking, it made me think, like what I'd always learned, that every time you say a bracha, of godliness, and that's the, like literally like a stream of water. That was the way I was taught it. That, and so that the intervention of the human is extremely important to bring down that godliness. And I was thinking here, the text is saying you don't have to do anything. It'll just come straight down without your intervention. And yet that seems to contradict the rest of the text, which is saying, if you don't do this, that, and the other, then it won't work for you. So I'm finding that a little confusing.
Yeah, so there's teachings about, as you said, like there's teachings about there's certain times when the flow just comes, you don't have to do anything, and there's other times when you've got to pull the flow. So it actually, they both exist in our teachings. Andre.
Well, so Rabbi, in a more general way, what's to be done? Are we just sort of to continue to stumble along and make nice as best we can, which is, the incremental perfecting of our imperfections and the world's imperfections? Do we need revolution? I mean, what really is to be done?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, Andre. What can we do in this historical moment when we're witnessing a genocide in Gaza, an ethnic cleansing, and horrors in the West Bank, horrors on the streets in our own country with people being swept up every single day. I mean, a kid was just swept off the street while walking his dog, a teenager. I sometimes wonder, I've been arrested. I tried to get arrested many times and haven't been arrested. Ray was participating in the 40-day fast in solidarity with Gaza. Some of us participated some of that time. In England, there were 1,000 people who showed up to protest. And we know historically, we couldn't stop the war in Iraq. So there's forces of power and domination that are, for lack of a better word, really, really winning, right? Really overpowering us. And I was thinking about this yesterday. If it was my child that this was happening to, what would I do? And these are my children. So what the hell am I doing? What are we doing? And I'm not trying to guilt any of us, but I look back in Nazi Germany, I'm like, what the hell did they do? They did nothing. How do we know they did nothing? Maybe they did exactly what we did. Now we know some didn't. I'm not just like we know some people are now. I mean, but what do we do in the face of a genocide that our country is funding? It's being done in the name of Judaism and Jews. And, I think this is one of the questions. The second day of Rosh Hashanah, we're going to take Rosh Hashanah to the streets. And those of you who are not joining in person, you'll be able to see it online. And the question is where, what can we do? How will it make a splash? And I'm not going to say more. You'll get information about it when we figure it out and through a different means than Zoom. But unfortunately, I don't think anyone has that answer, Andre. I mean, lots of us have been in lots of conversations about what we can do. I think what we can do is whatever each of us can do. So I think some of it is talking to people, standing on the street once a week, every day, educating people, asking them to continually call their representatives. If getting arrested is your thing, get arrested. I don't, at this point, it hasn't been particularly effective. I think we each have to do what's within our conscience to do. And if nothing else, we'll know we did what we could. It's not enough because it's not going to stop this. Debbie and then Leah. I'm not hearing you. You are unmuted, but I'm not hearing you. Are others hearing?
No.
Try again, Debbie. We're still not hearing you.
Can hear you, Debbie. If you're able to find the little caret next to the microphone and see if you can make sure the microphone is connected to the device you're using, that might help.
Thanks, Leah.
No, still can't hear you. Will you add something in chat? I'm actually about to read something in chat anyway, so that's perfect. I actually just made jump in, Rabbi Cat.
Yeah, I saw your hand, please.
I just wanted to lift something up that Joyce wrote, and Joyce wrote another thing in the chat, which was a quote from AOC, which is to keep building community. And then Joyce continues, we outnumber the fascists. Fascists. It is not for us to finish the task, neither may we desist from it. Take nonviolent action in groups. There are groups almost everywhere. Some can be found on Facebook or online in general. Keep calling elected even the bad ones. Never give up.
Beautiful. Thank you, Joyce. Yeah, Neil, and then I want to wrap up because
I'll make it very brief. Springboarding off of what was said, the same group that put together the No King's Days rally morphed into 1 Million Rising. If you go to their website, they give a series of trainings on how to do nonviolent civil disobedience to disrupt everything from what takes place on the local level to on the national. Simultaneously to that, the Resistance Lab, which is a project of Yale, talks about the building 3.5% persistence over time and how that's a proven remedy of putting the brakes on fascism. So it's both understanding and taking action.
Thank you. Jacqueline, we haven't heard from you today.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good.
Yes.
As you know, I'm calling in from Canada. And I want to say something from this vantage point that affects the Israel-Palestine issue. There are many in Canada, of course, who are absolutely outraged. We do not want to be taken over as a state, but that seems to be in the past. There are some speakers, like a guy named Charlie Angus, who is a former MP, who is connected now to the Midas people, and he's very left when it comes to Canada, but he's putting out these posts like, I stand with California. And that does much more good than the Canadians who say, to hell with you, all Americans just want to take us over, to hell with all of them. I think in the same way, we cannot totally impose purity tests on Jews who maybe are not where we are. but who are moving in that direction, in the right direction, I think. So that's what I want to say. Influence a Jewish group. Maybe they're not your preferred group, but they are moving. They're not, they can't stand it like we can't stand it, but they're slower. So
yes, good point. Yes, on Monday I participated in an action with a broad swath of rabbis who I think have been moved by the starvation or have been moved over time. So yeah, we could critique things, and you know, if mainstream Jewish organizations, even J Street has now pretty much acknowledges the genocide, or at least is willing to say, I'm not going to deny it. If more mainstream Jewish organizations start to call it what it is and name it what it is and challenge it, there might start to be a fracture, and AIPAC and the ADL might start to be more marginalized. I also want to say that still the largest group supporting Israel is Christians United for Israel. By far. Just that organization has 10 million members, which is more Jews than in the United States. So,
right.
You know, there's also other forces, but continually trying, you know, our tradition is one, like, we believe in miracles. Like, you know, history has changed. Holocausts, genocides have ended and people have survived. Slavery ended. Things. So yes, we just have to keep on keeping on and have faith. And when we feel distraught and devastated, we turn to resources that nourish us, whether that's prayers, whether that's coming to Shabbat, coming to high holidays, anything that helps you re-ensoul yourself, which is what Shabbat is, so you can return to the work. Thanks. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you. And just my last thing, it's very important to, whenever we can, call out publicly Christians United, because I think people don't know as much as they should about that group.
Thank you.
Okay.
Leah, did you have another thing to read for us, or something you want to share from yourself?
Yes, I wanted to read what Debbie wrote.
Thank you.
That she was not able to say, we were not able to hear. Sometimes I wish I was a medical doctor. This morning on the Palestinian Museum site, there was an interview with an American doctor who had been in Gaza and was sharing some things truly awful. Otherwise, I think it really is doing whatever each of us can and praying that it is what is needed in that moment.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. So we're going to close out. We went over and everyone's still here. I want to read a quote because we did a lot of theological discussion today. Peter Beinart, if you follow him, or you can find him on Substack or probably YouTube, he did a video on, do rabbis really believe in God? And it was really challenging rabbis who are silent in this moment. It's very powerful. I also posted on my Facebook page and made some comments about it. It's stinging. It's really good. And I often wonder that, right? Like, because our role as rabbis is actually not to answer to our congregation. I hate to tell you that. Our role is to answer to the divine. And so part of the reason for the past 2 years that I have been bringing things that push us further and further on this journey is because I've seen that as my role. And if you push back against me, I will engage in conversation with you and hold you and me with compassion and engage in pastoral support and all of that. But really, I answer to the divine. That's who I answer to. And when I am watching a genocide unfold, what my divine tells me is, stop this. Refuse to accept this, call it out and name it clearly and unequivocally. That's my job. And for those of you who have come on this journey in the past 2 years with me and us, bless your hearts, thank you. So there's a quote that Rabbi Irving Greenberg made in response to the silence of Christians during the Holocaust. And it was sent out with Friends of Sabeel North America. If you're not on their email list, they do a Jonathan Kutab, if you remember, he spoke at our high holidays, and then I also had him speak after October 7th to us. He spoke to us on holidays right before October 7th in 2023. And this is the quote. Let us offer then as a working principle the following. No statement, theological or otherwise, should be made that would not be credible in the face of burning children. We could say starving children. We could say children having legs amputated without anesthesia. No statement, theological or otherwise, should be made that would not be credible in the presence of burning children. Must speak enough. We can go back to blessing after the Torah and Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam nata b'tochenu rucha aya shechina notenet haTorah. Amen. Yishberach. If you have somebody you're seeking healing for yourself or someone else, I'm going to chant this. Those of you who want to chant with me, feel free. And then just call out the names of those that are in need of healing, and just know that in the chant and the prayer itself, their names are uplifted, and may they be fully healed in body, mind, and spirit, and soul, and heart, and may they return to us fully healed. Mishaberach Avotenu Abraham Yitzhak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bella Zilpah Vivarech V'Yirapeh HaCholim Mishaberach Imotenu Sarah Rivka Leah Rachel Bella Zilpah Abraham Yitzhak Yaakov Vivarech V'Yirapeh HaCholim El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah. Amen. You can keep going. Ki lekakto natati lachem Torati al tazavu Eitz chaim hi mazal chamikim ba Ve'tom hereha me'ushar terachecha dam v'noah v'novetivoteha shalom hashivenu yud-he-vav-he Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameh. And I'm going to just give off on Elenu. We're not going to chant or sing anything in the interest of time. Elenu, as I've said before, means it is upon us. So I think we just ended the Torah study talking about what's upon us. And so I'm just going to invite you to take one moment. I'm not going to take a lot of time in the interest of time, but just take a moment and ask yourself, it's said in the Torah, Shemor, protect these teachings, listen to God, Shema, YHVH. What is it that you hear from the divine source? And maybe you just take this into your day and you listen for the day, for the rest of Shabbat. Maybe it comes to you during the week. What is it that is upon you? to take on, as Andre asked, at this time. And there's a great quote in one of our prayers: who amongst us knows how to turn anger's strength to furthering life's intentions? Who can teach us to transform our fears? What is it that can make us, each one of us, be the most courageous, loving person that we can be, so we can transform anger's life to furthering life's intentions and transform our fears so we can serve life? It is upon us, Elenu.